And welcome to another episode of GamerHeads. My name is Roger, aka Rogue Leader 76, and with me are my co-host Blue,
aka Writer's View,
and my other co-host Christian,
aka Folgan.
Welcome to the show. We have a lot to cover this week. We'll have reviews of The Princess Guide and Sekiro. Is that how you pronounce it? Sekiro?
Yeah, close enough.
So we'll review those. Christian beat Sekiro, so that's awesome. In record time, you are a god amongst men when it comes to video games, sir.
I wish I was, Roger. You're the real god.
I'm not.
You were the one who raised me, Roger.
That's true. I did raise you. That is a good point. We'll also have some news to talk about. Some breaking news. Sega Genesis Mini. We'll talk about that. And the two rumored Nintendo consoles coming out this year. The new Switch consoles. And then we have our hot topic. And our hot topic is, do digital services really mean the end of gaming? With the announcement of Google Stadia. Sorry, pronounce that? Stadia? Stadia.
We need to give Roger a pronunciation guide before every episode.
I know. We'll be talking about that as well. So, and then we have your listener feedback too. So, before we get into all that, we do have an icebreaker. But I do want to talk about a little bit about last week. Since I was out, we had a episode where we just played some of our favorite clips. So I wanted to thank Blue for going through a lot of our episodes and digging through and finding really fun clips and clipping those for me. So thank you so much, Blue, for doing that.
My pleasure. We're so funny, you know. It was so hard to narrow it down.
But so last week I was out. I went to St. Louis, and I just wanted to briefly talk about that. So I am a St. Louis Blues fan now. The hockey team there.
He drank the Kool-Aid.
I did drink the Kool-Aid. Everybody there is a St. Louis Blues fan. I mean, everybody there is a St. Louis Blues fan. It was crazy. And everybody was super nice. Like, St. Louis was people were very nice, and everybody was really, nice. The hotel we stayed in, the people were super nice. But I do want to say one quick story. So we stayed in a hotel downtown St. Louis, and we said to the clerk, we said, "Hey, do you think it's possible to get a room facing the arch?" And he said, "Oh yeah, no problem. Let me look." And he looked, and he's like, "Okay, got you guys. I got you guys a room up on the 8th floor. Cool." And I put the key into the room. And I open the door, and I swing it open, and there is a bottle of Gatorade on the table, a bottle of champagne on the table, food all over the whole room, like bags of like bread and chips and other stuff. And the door swung open. Thank God there was nobody in there. But the door swung open, and I just let it slowly close, and I just sat there and stared.
You got lucky. That could have been so much worse.
I know, right? So I go back down to the desk, and I said, "So, there's somebody staying in that room." And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, that room is occupied." And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So they gave us a different room, which was fine. And then we were down there for a week. So like Thursday night, like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, sitting there watching Blues. I was watching the Blues play.
Blues?
No, the hockey team.
Oh.
And it was Thursday night. Maybe it was a different night. But anyway, I was watching hockey, and I hear somebody slide the key into the room. And I was like, uh-oh. And the door opens. But I had the latch closed. And the door opens, and I was like, excuse me. I didn't see who they were. And they're like, "Oh, sorry, I thought this room was empty." And they leave, and I called the front desk, and I said, "So somebody tried to get into our room? They had a key, and they actually access to the room." I'm like, "Oh." I said, "I had the latch on, so I didn't see who it was." And they're like, "Well, can you describe what they look like?" I said, "No, I had the latch closed, so I didn't see. They just like opened it a crack, so I didn't see who it was." "Okay, but can you briefly describe what they look like?"
What the heck?
What part don't you understand? The latch was closed. I did not see them. Oh, it was probably one of our house staffs. And I'm like, really? At 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, you have house staff going around cleaning rooms? But then I looked up, and I think this is maybe what happened. I looked up in the room, and the smoke detector had a bag over it. And I said to Tanya, my wife, there's a reason that bag's there.
You're in the staff break room, Roger.
I am. That's right. But other than that, it was a good time. I mean, like I said, the hotel, the staff was really nice. And I called down there several times because there was a couple things we needed, and I called down there, and things that we thought we were going to be in the room that weren't, and we had to call down there for that. And I was like, I'm really sorry for being a pest. And they're like, you're one of the nicest people we have ever stayed in this hotel. Don't ever feel bad about asking us for things. And I was like, okay, thanks.
Weird.
Yeah.
So the lesson is always lock your door in St. Louis.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, man.
But yeah, no, it was a good time. We went to the Endangered Wolf Reserve, and that's the main reason we went down there. Because my daughter's really into wolves, and we adopted a wolf for her for Christmas at that reserve. So then we got passes to go to the reserve, and we did a wolf haul with them, and that was really fun. They hauled back to us three times. So that was really, really fun. We got to see them do a feeding as well, and yeah, it was a neat experience. So. Had a really good time. I'm glad to be back, but we had fun. So, anyway, that's why we were off last week. Did you guys do anything fun last week while we were out?
No.
I played video games.
Yeah, that's right. You beat like 3 games, I think, over that week. 3 or 4 games, maybe?
Maybe. Sure.
Maybe. That's a slow week for Christian, though.
Yeah, it is, actually. Oh. All right, well, I'm glad that we're back, guys. So, all right, so we have an icebreaker this week. And the icebreaker, who's the icebreaker from, Blue?
This is from @Claymation Nation on Twitter.
Yeah. So they asked us to talk about what our cringiest video game ads are. This one's tough. I don't know.
Well, you had to probably do a little bit of research first.
Yeah.
Because I did 5 minutes before we got on here. I did research.
All right, Blue, then why don't you start us off? What is the
Okay.
cringiest video game ad?
So F-Zero had one where it was a picture of an eyeball where the lids were cut off.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah, things have changed. That I don't
Yeah.
think would make most publications today.
Jeez.
And I'm not exactly sure how it makes you want to buy F-Zero. And then there's another one for Donkey Kong Land on the Game Boy, the original, green screen Game Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got like this just totally over the top, like African medicine man holding the Game Boy.
What
with
the heck?
the headdress and the bone through his nose and everything. And it's, yeah. That
boy.
probably is not going to work out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Not a cartoon either. A real live man dressed like
Oh
that.
boy.
Oh my gosh. What the heck?
Mm.
That's
Wow.
weird.
So
We've come a long way.
we have.
Yeah.
Every time you think that the human race is terrible, and oftentimes it is, I'll give you that. But remember, we are slowly making progress.
It's
Yeah.
true. Slowly. Do you have anything, Christian?
Yeah, so in the age of the internet now, you always see like people dredging up old commercials for old game consoles and stuff like that, which is great. because I get to see these commercials for consoles that came out before I was alive. So there's the Atari Jaguar.
Yeah, that felt like a subtle dig.
Yeah,
Well, it's cool. It's cool. I like being able to experience that because there's this one game store in Madison where it feels like stepping into a time portal back into like the 90s because he's got like Super Nintendo stuff everywhere. And that's a era of video games I just wasn't around for. So I just find it very interesting and fascinating, just really cool to step in there and see like video game magazines lining the shelves and like bins full of like Super Nintendo and Genesis controllers. That's really cool.
What store is that?
Oh, I don't know what it was called. I just like Googled video game store in Madison, and it was like, it had like this small mom and pop shop vibe, which I liked a lot too. It was like this one dude who would just like fix up video games in the basement of his house and then sell them.
Huh.
Really cool.
Was that on the west side or east side?
Oh, I don't know that either. I'm sorry.
Did you live in Madison?
I did, yeah. I mean, like, I was just all cooped up at campus. If I wanted to get anywhere, I'd just stare at the GPS on my phone. But anyway, there's an Atari Jaguar commercial that I find fascinating because their tagline is "Do the math." And it's this lady on a chalkboard, right? And she's got these dudes that she's schooling on how amazing the Atari Jaguar is. Because it came out around the time, I think like the Super Nintendo was probably at its peak at the time. The Genesis probably too. And so she's on the whiteboard and she writes 16-bit, 32-bit, and 64-bit, which is what the Atari Jaguar was. And she says, do the math. Which one is bigger? And we all know that the Atari Jaguar died a very quick death.
Yeah.
So boy, that marketing campaign didn't work out well at all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, mine is actually a Jaguar commercial too.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's
November 1993.
Yeah.
Now we've settled that.
There's something weird about those commercials back then, but this one is Cybermorph. And it's this kid that's playing this game, and it's like this. It's just like a kind of looks like Star Fox, kind of. Mm-hmm. But he's as he's playing it, the whole camera's jolting back and forth because he's like, moving the controller and it, whatever. But then at the end of the commercial, he throws up all over the screen. Like,
what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Play this game; it'll give you motion sickness.
Oh.
I know. And like, I kind of want to throw up because like I'm seeing it right now, and I think I'm gonna throw up because it's really gross. He like has chunks in his mouth, and he's like, bleh, and he spits it all over the screen. It's absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. So, yeah. So,
Did
kids like getting grossed out?
I don't.
There was 90s? A period in the 80s, 90s where gross humor, like, you were probably familiar with Garbage Pail Kids.
Yeah, Garbage Pail
where
Kids.
that was like a thing. Gross humor.
Yeah. It's weird because like staying in that hotel for the last week, we watched a lot of like Cartoon Network, which we don't have at home.
Oh.
And then they had they had commercials, right? Obviously on Cartoon Network, and one of them was like these like slime ball things that you take these slimes and you throw them. They're like little garbage cans, and you throw them, and then they ooze out these creatures. And I was like, oh my god, that's like their version of Garbage Pail Kids. That's what was the first thing I thought of too. But yeah, it is weird. Like, gross humor is weird.
What other explanation do you have for the fact that there's a video game called Booger Man?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh man,
Christian, you ever played that game?
No, I have not.
Have you, Blue?
No.
Oh, I have.
I didn't think that anybody over the age of 9 could stomach it, to be honest. I missed my window, and I was just like,
man.
no.
I played it in college because just for nostalgia, just because of the fact that it's a weird game. But yeah.
And how high were you?
I wasn't. I the only time I've ever gotten high, Blue, was when I worked at a furniture factory, and they had these machines that you'd cut wood and it would spray paint the wood, and then you because they want to keep track of how much wood you're cutting. And after 10 hours of this, I was like, I gave it to one of my friends. And I said, if I go like this, my lips feel all tingly. It's really weird. And he's like, oh my God, you're high. And I'm like, oh man, I am.
You didn't have to wear a mask?
No, it was really bad.
They
It was a
should
bad.
have probably made you wear masks.
Yeah. Well, then I walked.
You're working with machinery.
Right? Exactly. So then I walked into the office and I said to the foreman, I said, I think the machine got me high. And her response was, yeah, we were afraid that might happen. That's what her response was. The next day, so I worked second shift. The first shift manager came up and said, here's a problem. We had the setting at 13 pressure per square inch. It's supposed to be at 3. So we want you to go back on the machine and test it out again. I said, yeah, I'm not doing that again. And he got so pissed off at me. He's like, you're going to go on that machine. I'm like, nah, I'm not. Like, it was just a summer job for me because I didn't care. I was like, I'm not going on that machine again. I got too many, I don't have that many brain cells to begin with. I don't need to be burning them out on this machine.
I'd be interesting to see the OSHA review of that place.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When I worked there, the place blew up. Because somebody threw a nail down the machine and it would. So I'll just go aside. Sorry. So somebody threw a nail down the machine and it was, so you'd throw all this waste down this area and they would have these big like hammers that would chop up the wasted wood and they would grind it into sawdust and then would store it into a silo and the silo would then, have all the sawdust in there and then they would ship that out to, I don't know, people or whatever that needed sawdust. And they always say, like, be careful not to send a nail or anything metal down there because if it hits one of those hammers just right, it could cause a spark. Well, it did. Somebody threw a nail down there. It sparked. The whole, like, silo blew up and the fire came through all of they call them blowers, but they sucked up sawdust.
Ooh.
Man.
Yeah, it was crazy. We didn't work for like a week because the whole place, like the whole silo blew up. It was weird. That place was a weird place to work. They're out of business now, so that's interesting. But
That's good.
But that was the job that convinced me, because I took a year off of college, and that was the job that convinced me I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I'm going back to college, so I guess I kind of needed that. Anyway, video games. So yeah. Christian, the 90s was a weird time, like
I
for
guess
sure,
so.
for sure. Like they we certainly had some really weird sense of humor. So
I'd say
doesn't really translate very well to today's market.
I guess not.
Yeah. Anyway, listeners, you can let us know what the cringiest video game ad you've ever seen. You can send us a tweet at GamerHeadsPC. You can send us an email at info@gamerheadspodcast.com. You can go to our website. You can go to gamerheadspodcast.com and leave us a message there. Or you can go to facebook.com/gamerheadspodcast and leave us a message there as well. All right, so let's go on to the news. I do have a few items here in the news. And then obviously if you have anything you want to bring up, please feel free to do so. The first item that I have is, did you guys hear this? Like, I just saw this today, that Sega Genesis, there's going to be a Sega Genesis Mini. Maybe that was announced a while back, but
I saw it last night for the first
Oh, you
time.
did? Okay. Releasing on September 19th, 2019, and it will include 40 games, and it'll retail at $80, and 10 of the games have been announced, and these 10 games that have been announced have been Echo the Dolphin, Castlevania Bloodlines, Space Harrier 2, Shining Force, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Toe Jam and Earl, Comics Zone, Sonic the Hedgehog and Altered Beast, and Gunstar Heroes.
I think it's Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Oh, is it 2?
I think so. That's what I read.
Oh. But in any case, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Solid lineup.
Yeah.
I don't know. I already have a knockoff Genesis Mini.
Oh.
Yeah.
And it's got like 60 or 70 games on it already.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is it the one that Target and Walmart were selling?
I probably.
Yeah.
I got it online, but
Oh, okay.
I don't know. This is cool, but I don't know. I already have one, so I don't know
Yeah.
if I'll get this. Maybe Sega, took too long.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the problem with this, is that it's going to be hard to market because you've already got boxes like these Sega Genesis flashbacks out in the wild, and they've been out in the wild for years now. And then I guess this is one that's more official or something.
It has the official Sega Genesis seal of quality.
There you go.
Oh, wow. Yeah, mine doesn't have that. I will admit that the controllers feel stupid cheap.
Yeah.
But I haven't broken them yet, so.
That's good. But yeah, I feel like Nintendo, by just coming out with the NES Classic, they don't muddy the waters with all these other machines where you have like 80 Sega Genesis games on them. They just put out the one console.
Yeah.
That seems like the best way to do it, but I could be wrong.
Well, but it's interesting because PlayStation, there's no like PlayStation Classic, outside the one that PlayStation put out, but I'm just saying they didn't have one that was like flashback. They have the Atari flashback and the Genesis flashback, but they never had like a PlayStation flashback, and that system bombed. But I think, Blue, you mentioned this before, like the games that are on there were not very...
Yeah.
They weren't like their star lineup. I mean, this is going to have 40 games on it, but like your flashback, you said you had 60 games on it, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And how much did you pay for that, do you know?
40?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I thought it was like
and also because I bought the Sega Genesis collection on Switch.
Oh,
it's already got a bunch of these games, that at least of these 10 that are listed. So
yeah,
I think I'm pretty stacked up when it comes to Genesis games.
Yeah, that is weird. That is it. I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll have to see how this goes. I mean, I was just looking at their at their ad. So some of the things that they're promoting here, it has the 2 classic 3-button control pads. Like 3-button control pads. I never had a Genesis, so I was really 3 buttons? And then it says 2 wired controllers, USB power adapter, okay, power cable, HDMI cable. It's super easy to plug in. I'm like, okay, like these are your selling points. I don't know. I mean,
maybe they're going for people who played these when they were young, and then assuming that we're still our parents and don't know how to work, technological doohickeys.
Probably. It does look like a Genesis. I mean, certainly it's cool looking.
Yeah.
I think for somebody that likes to collect those mini consoles, because that seems to be a thing now too, is they're collecting these mini consoles. I mean, I think people might want to do that, but I think you're right. I mean, Blue, you have a really good point that there's so many different options out there for you to get this cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's weird.
I know. If they were going to do this, they needed to do it a couple years ago. It's kind of like Christian said.
Yeah. So, well, that's the thing. I guess we'll have to revisit this back on when it comes out.
It's still very cool.
Yeah. So, Blue, do you want to take the next one from Nintendo Life here?
Sure. This comes from Nintendo Life, and a rumor is going around that Nintendo is releasing 2 new consoles this year. They are going to release not 1, but 2 new Switch SKUs? SKUs?
Yep.
SKUs this year?
Yep.
According to a fresh report from the Wall Street Journal. As previously hinted, one of these versions will be a cheaper model that could well remove the detachable Joy-Cons altogether, making it more akin to a 3DS successor. The Wall Street Journal says that the HD rumble feature will be absent from this model, which is why the famous Joy-Con might not be a feature. It is expected that this could launch as early as summer. The second, more expensive device will apparently have enhanced features targeted at avid video gamers. While details on this Pro model haven't been released, one of the sources for the Wall Street Journal has spoken and stated that it was more than just a simple revision, like the new Nintendo 3DS, so we could see a significant power boost.
The interesting part about first of all, the cheaper model. So if they're not detachable Joy-Cons and they're not going to have the HD Rumble feature, like games like 1, 2, 3 Switch or 1, 2 Switch, 1, 2, 3 Switch, 1, 2 Switch. You can't play that game on it.
Or Mario Party. I wouldn't think you'd be able to play that either.
Yeah, that's true. So that's interesting.
I mean, you still could.
Oh, if you buy Joy-Cons.
If you buy Joy-Cons or you buy Pro controllers.
Yeah.
But would you be able to? I don't know. I mean, can you hook up? I mean, because it would have to have some kind of Bluetooth, right? If it's not, if you're going to be able to just buy Joy-Cons for this thing. I mean, I guess that's the other thought. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how that would work. How would you be able to? Would it be able to play with more people?
Maybe it won't come with a dock.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if it's not going to be able to have a dock even, and if not, then that's really interesting. It will just truly be a handheld system.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then the more powerful device, the only thing that concerns me about this, and I hope Nintendo doesn't do this like they did with the 3DS, but that they have exclusives just for that more powerful system. Because it didn't do very well for the 3DS, and that would suck. Especially it's only been 2 years. That would suck to have like only you can play this game on the new Switch. Oh crap.
Well, yeah, I'd be interested to see if these rumors prove true, what exactly the Pro model is going to be.
Yeah.
Because pretty much everybody, if you have a Switch for more than like a month, you got to get the little storage cards to go with it. So if the Pro is just more memory, then probably most people aren't going to be interested in it.
Yeah,
because they've already invested in their memory cards.
Yeah, I heard somebody say, or I heard on a podcast or read it somewhere, that Nintendo is rumored to be working with like Sharp to come up with like a better, I guess like 180 on their screen. So maybe
a 1080p screen. You're talking?
Yeah, 1080p screen. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
That'd be cool.
Yeah,
but I think, well, I'd be very curious to see, because I think the Switch's size, I think, is pretty good. I don't have any problems with its size. I think it's a good like portability versus size screen. So if they kept the same screen size, if they went 1080p, I feel like they would have to make the screen bigger, because if you just make more pixels in that small form factor, you're not really going to notice all that much. So I'd like that. If they put beefier hardware in there, I would be all for that. I would like that a lot, because one of the main deterrents for me for picking up multi-platform games on Switches that they don't run as well, like Trials Rising. I was tempted to pick that up on Switch, but then I see that the frame rate's 2 times better on a PS4 or Xbox, or even better than that on a PC. And then at that point, I find it hard to justify a Switch purchase. And if the Switch Pro can completely smooth that over, that would make me play more things on Switch.
See, that's interesting, because I mean, I think that's a difference. I've said this before. I think that's a difference between you and I, Christian, because that is important to you and it's not as important to me. And I wonder if that has to do with just the age of gaming or where we grew up, right? Because that doesn't bother me. I have Trials Rising on a Switch, and I think it looks good, but I mean, I'll admit it doesn't look as good as like a PlayStation or Xbox or PC, but I mean, it's good enough for me. It's weird. I mean, it's an interesting thing. Like, I wouldn't buy a Pro for the upscale of the hardware, but
you might be onto it, Roger, because it's not really something that is a deal breaker for me either.
Yeah. And Blue, we're close to the same age. I think Christian is like...
We're old. Just leave it at that.
I think if they could boost the frame rate, that would be huge for me. If they could make more 30 frames per second games 60 frames per second, like if Trials Rising ran at 60 frames on Switch, despite the graphical downgrades, I'd be all in. Because I definitely feel that difference. And video games, like back in the 2600 days, all used to be 60 frames. That used to be the norm. But now with 3D rendering, we've gotten into the realm of 30 frames, and it just being good enough, that lack of responsiveness being good enough and built into how they design games now. So I would really appreciate a bump in frame rate, if anything, but that would take a significant hardware boost.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll see. And it'll be interesting to see what the prices are on it too. So like, I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
So, the next item, Christian, you want to take the next item here?
Yeah, you give me the bad news. This one's from Nintendo Life. The video game publisher giant Electronic Arts is laying off around 350 employees across marketing, publishing, and operations divisions. And this came about By an email to employees, the EA CEO Andrew Wilson said the company had a vision to be the world's greatest games company, and to do this, it would streamline its organization to meet the needs of its players. They said part of this move will involve ramping down, quote-unquote, its current presence within Japan and Russia and finding, quote-unquote, different ways to serve players in these regions. Globally, it wants to provide higher quality games and services and also improve its Frostbite tools, network, and cloud technology to further unite its community.
Yeah, that is too bad.
So all you people who were upset about microtransactions and didn't buy them, this is your fault.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Yikes.
Yeah, that's what I got out of it, too.
Jeez.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting time because was it Blizzard or Activision that just not too long ago also laid off a bunch of people? Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So it's weird because these companies are really big and they make lots of money. It just shocks me. I mean, this one sounds like it's a reorg, and I read on a little bit about this too. And one of the employees said we knew where this was coming. This wasn't a surprise to us. And they're trying to relocate some of the employees, as many as they can, to other divisions, but it doesn't look like they can do that for everybody.
Yeah, their catalog's pretty anemic. It seems like they place a lot of investment, time, effort, money into live services, because like Anthem was like their big game this year, and even for like half of last year. So
that went well.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So now they're just kind of trying to ride off of Apex Legends coattails, which I assume didn't take them near as much effort as it took BioWare to build up Anthem over the past 3, 4, 5 years. So I feel like we're seeing a shift in kind of how these big, giant publishers place their time, money, and effort into projects.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And the industry is always changing, and it's awful that these people are getting laid off. But I mean, it's just kind of how it is. Also, I don't want to sound uncaring because it wasn't me, but that's just how industries work. Yeah.
Well, hopefully they'll be able to find something relatively quick. So. All right. The last item that I have is from GamerHeadsPodcast.com. What?
Whoa.
What? They are very reliable.
That's what I hear. That's what I hear. Midboss' Summer of Pride promotes LGBTQIA games and creators. So June 2019 will kick off the Summer of Pride, a month-long stream celebration of LGBTQIA games developers and streamers. The stream will be hosted by Midboss, developers behind the game 2064 Read-Only Memories. The stream can be found on the Midboss's Twitch channel. The Summer of Pride promotes games that feature positive representations of marginalized perspectives and diverse devs that create the games. The games that will be included in the streams are Gone Home, Tacoma, 2064 Read-Only Memories, Another Lost Phone, Dominic Pamplemousse, and Even the Ocean. And this is a quote here. We don't just make LGBTQIA plus games and media. Midboss now, as a business mission, aims to promote and support diverse games and their developers in every way possible, said Cade Peterson, interim CEO of Midboss. By partnering with streamers from across the gender, sexuality, and POC spectrums, we're also highlighting talented individuals who want to generate discourse about these topics by engaging with representative games for their audiences. So that's really cool. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, really awesome.
That'll be fun.
So you can read more about that on our website at GamerHeadsPodcast.com. Do you guys have anything else?
I do. Do you, Christian?
You go first, Blue.
Okay. Yes, last week was Announcement Palooza week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we had the Nintendo Direct, and then Sony came and did one of their own, which was not great. And then Apple had one wherein they announced that they're starting a streaming subscription service for games.
Yeah. Is it Apple Arcade? Is that what it is?
Yes, Apple Arcade. And they said that they are going to have over 100 exclusive titles. And the developers that they have working for them are Sega, Disney, Konami, some big names.
Wow. So silly question, but you need an Apple device to play these games, right?
I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'd assume so.
Yeah. Oh, poopy. I'll have to go buy it.
Dang, I have to go out of my way to buy an expensive Apple device so then I can pay them for their subscription service.
Exactly. Because I have an iPad, but it's like Gen 1 or Gen 2. I don't think it's going to be able to play these games.
I think the Apple Arcade concept, I really like it for the mobile market. Because in the mobile market, that space is just so cluttered with like recycled stuff over and over and over. Like I'll check in on the Google Play Store like once a month, and I'll be like, I'm looking for something just to toy around with in my free time. And then I'll go to the free games, which is, on me totally. Because there's this weird stigma in mobile games where spending like any more than $2 or $3 on anything is like unheard of on a phone. Like that's out of scope, spending more than $3. Whereas on like Switch, you'll be like all the best stuff is like $15 or more.
Yeah.
Which is a really weird disconnect between those things. Or like Donut County, that game's fantastic. It was like $5 on phones, and then it was like $15 on PS4, the same exact game. So I feel like this Apple Arcade would be able to make the creators would be able to make the games that they want to make without muddying the waters with microtransactions and monetization methods like ads and stuff like that, because they are getting what I assume is they are getting that financial capital through Apple. And so they can continue to put quality games on the mobile platform, and then Apple will also be able to kind of curate that, because they're only going to fund the games that they know are going to be of, a certain quality bar. So stuff like Another Lost Phone, which you just mentioned, talking about the LGBTQIA plus games, that's a fantastic mobile game, but because it costs a few bucks, next to no one's played it.
Yeah.
That's so weird, because I would so much rather pay $3 for a better game that doesn't have a bunch of crap in it.
Exactly.
I would rather do that every single day.
You and me both.
Yeah. And I think Christian, you hit on a really important part there, that they're going to curate this, whatever games go on there, which is, it's cool because I want, I want a good quality experience, right? So I think that's like my biggest complaint with like Steam and other things, right? That it's just you get a lot of like weird garbage out there.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of noise. Like the good games get lost because of the noise. And I feel like the Switch is kind of falling in that category too. There's a lot of really good games that get lost in all the noise that happens.
Yeah.
But so is this going to be a paid service? So it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Last I heard, they hadn't announced a specific price. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. The other thing you mentioned, Blue, I just want to kind of touch upon was the state of play, the PlayStation's Nintendo Direct. So what was interesting about that was, Nintendo can come out with a Nintendo Direct and they can like focus on indies, or they can focus on like their first party games, but like that's what they do really well at. And I feel like PlayStation, while their first party games and their exclusives are really good, they don't have as many, and it's a weird thing that like, what are they going to promote? I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know. Nintendo has a shortcut to success because they can throw a Mario title or a Yoshi title or a Zelda title, and everybody goes nuts because those characters are so beloved. Yeah. But Sony doesn't have that.
Yeah.
So they have to try to impress you with new stuff, and of course most people are nonplussed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and the other thing that was really interesting with Nintendo is now that they're opening up some of their IPs with indies, and that could be really, really cool if they continue to do that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I don't know. That was I'm excited about the Apple Arcade. I mean, it's kind of gonna tie into our hot topic this week too, so it'll be interesting to talk through that some more. Christian, did you have anything else?
Yeah, so Blue said that there were tons of announcements. I think there was PAX over the weekend, or over this past week too.
Yep.
And during PAX, they announced Borderlands 3.
Yeah.
Weird place to announce it, but still awesome. Like I just saw the trailer kind of pop up. Did either of you see the trailer at all?
Mm-mm.
I just heard it on the news.
Heard it on the news?
I know Twitter exploded a little bit, but I didn't see it.
It's weird because the common conception around this trailer is like awesome, yes, love it, amazing. And I've played through Borderlands 1 and 2 several times. Like those games, if I played like Borderlands 1 when I was like 12 and I was like, this is the only video game I need, this game's perfect. Like why do people not like say this is amazing? Because when I was 12, you could bolt on RPG mechanics onto anything. Like if you leveled up, period, I was all for it. I could just play that forever. Thank you very much. Like the fact that they put levels into Call of Duty multiplayer meant that I could just play that forever. It didn't matter anymore. So I was weird. I'm not like that anymore so much. But Borderlands 3 looks weird because it looks so similar to Borderlands 2. Like it looks more similar to Borderlands 2 than the pre-sequel looked to Borderlands 2. Like the pre-sequel looked like it pushed the formula forward in more meaningful and interesting ways than Borderlands 3 looks like it is. Like it looks very similar. Like there's vehicles, they jump off jumps and shoot stuff. You got 4 new characters, which is cool. And you've got a bunch of different locales that they showed off in that trailer. But it ultimately looks very samey, which isn't necessarily bad. I mean, it's been an entire console generation since we've gotten a brand new core Borderlands game. So, I mean, the fans have been waiting long enough. But I think there was one like E3 or something. They showed off like tech for a potential Borderlands sequel. They were like, "Oh, look at this! This is like Borderlands looking stuff." It looked fantastic. And then this trailer comes out and it just looks like Borderlands. So I mean, I guess that's on me. I shouldn't have expected it to be like a huge leap, despite the jump in generations of consoles. But still, I'm lukewarm with this announcement. Whereas like the general internet seems to be all boo-goos and hearty eyes over it.
Yeah. Well, okay, so this is a point that I feel like I've been talking a lot about lately, where it's as the public says, we want a new title in this series, and we want it to be full of new cool things. And then they get it, and then they complain that it's not exactly like the previous game.
Yeah.
AKA Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
I see.
So why isn't it Kingdom Hearts 2? Kingdom Hearts 2 was perfect. We love the speed running thingy mabobs. And yeah, so I don't know how you be a game developer and walk that fine line between, moving the series in a new and innovative direction and then not getting punished for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is weird. I mean, I think that's with any media, right? Like even music too, like where a band will come out and be like, "We have a new sound," and it was like, "No, don't."
We only want you to tell us you're doing new things, but we want you to give us more of the same.
Yeah,
this is how people are, and I don't understand it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
If they're gonna put out Borderlands 2 all over again and call it Borderlands 3, I think that's a very safe choice.
Yeah,
probably right.
Are they coming out with the remastered versions of 1 and 2 as well? Did they announce that too?
Borderlands 2 has been remastered for a while now. I want to say like 3 years. The Handsome Jack collection came out, which was a remaster of Borderlands 2 and the pre-sequel, which they came out on PS4, Xbox One. But they never remastered 1 for PS4 and Xbox One, and so that's what they're doing. They're making a Game of the Year edition of 1 and coming out with it on PS4 and Xbox One, and they're getting in there and changing some stuff, like changing the minimap so it looks more like Borderlands 2's and changing more significant things than just porting it over.
Yeah. Speaking of remasters, they just came out with AC3 remastered.
Yeah.
And they did some updates to that too to kind of bring it up to modern gaming as well. So
yeah, I kind of really want to play that. Assassin's Creed 3, I was like ridiculously excited for it back in the day. Like it was my first ever midnight launch release, and I wasn't 17 yet, so I was 16, and I was able to drive. So what I did was late that night, like 10:30 p.m., I drove over to one of my friends, and he was in our grade, but he was older, so he just turned 17. I picked him up, brought him, he went with him to GameStop, and then he showed them the ID, got the game for me, gave it to me. I dropped him off at home, and then on a school night, I stayed up till like 2 a.m. playing Assassin's Creed 3,
my God.
and really enjoyed it. Like the general consensus on that game isn't overwhelmingly positive, but I really enjoyed it, and also like. It also coincided with us in class. We were doing like a Revolutionary War video for a class. And so I was just like, my hype levels were at a fever pitch at that point in time. And I'd really like to go back and revisit it because I haven't played it since I first played it through the week of release.
So I just want to put this in perspective. October 30th, 2012 is when that game was released.
There you go.
16.
I guess so, yeah.
I was, Ellie was born already, so oh my gosh, wow, that's crazy. I already had a daughter when that game came out.
Wow.
And Christian couldn't even buy the game for himself.
Nope.
Exactly.
Roger was in charge of another human, and Christian needed permission.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Anything else?
Nope.
No.
All right. Well, then let's move on to the listener feedback. So since we took off last week, we'll cover the feedback that we got 2 weeks ago. And listeners, if you want to give us feedback, Christian, how can people send us an email?
You can send us an email at info@gamerheadspodcast.com.
And how can they send us a tweet?
At GamerHeadsPC on Twitter.
And what about Facebook?
Facebook.com/GamerHeadsPodcast.
And do we have a website?
Yeah, GamerHeadsPodcast.com.
I like how we changed that up a little bit. So
He was ready for you, though.
yeah, he was.
This time.
Yeah. So 2 weeks ago we asked, does the Google's new service, so we thought it was going to be a console. Well, I thought it was going to be a console. So.
Everybody thought it was going to be a console.
Yeah. And then surprise, it wasn't. So does the
anti-console?
Yeah, the anti-console, right? Does their new service? What does the Google's new service have to do to win you over? And this is what you had to say. So, Blue, do you want to take the first one there?
Sure. This is from Retro Game Brews on Twitter, and he said, "Retro video games with online 2+ player. It's a long shot, but that'd do it for me personally."
Yeah, that would be awesome.
That would be really cool if they could somehow get some retro games on there. I don't know how they would, but it'd be cool if they did.
That would be cool. Christian, you want to take the next one?
Sure. The DCD tweeted, "The right partners, the right product, the right price, better controller too."
Yeah. So are they going to come up with their own specific controller for this?
Yes.
Or can you use your... You can't... Oh, okay.
Yes.
It looks very Xboxy.
It does, yep. Controller design has been stagnant for like the past... 2 console generations?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Except for the Steam controller, which sucked anyway, so the only one that tried doing anything didn't succeed. Failed pretty badly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, outside Nintendo.
I guess you're right, yeah.
So Nintendo always tries to do something
Joy-Cons count as innovation?
Well, I mean, it has the Rumble HD in it. HD Rumble.
I hate Joy-Cons. Anyway.
The next one is from at X8finity, and they tweeted, "Funny, and people thought Xbox was going to spy on us this gen. Welcome to the paranoia with Googled. They have to do nothing for me. In fact, I already bought into the idea of not buying that. So, I guess he's not buying it."
There you go.
They're not wrong. Just throwing it out there.
I know. Actually, when after the announcement was made, I did send out a tweet about how Xbox was like, "Oh, people are afraid we're spying on them," and then Google says, "Hold my beer."
Oh, boy.
Blue, do you want to take the next one?
Sure. This is from Gamer Kratos, and they said exclusive sell consoles. If they have killer apps, I'm down, but I doubt this will happen.
Yeah, I don't know. Like they did announce like a lot of studios are going to be working with them, right? So I mean, there's a possibility that they could do some really cool things here. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see what their business model is, because for some reason, my preconceived notion was that it would be like a Xbox Game Pass situation where you pay a monthly fee or yearly fee, and then you get access to all the Google Stadia games.
Yeah.
But there's rumblings that it's actually buy games. Like you buy a game, and then whenever you can just hop on YouTube and play that game, which would be very interesting. Like that's very fascinating. And if they brought the prices down because of that, because there's no hardware component and no need to ship out retail or anything like that, that could be very interesting.
Yeah. I guess I was going to say some stuff now, but we'll hold it for our hot topic. So
sounds good.
Do you want to take the next one here?
Sure. At Red and Blue Dave tweeted, would be nice if they brought something completely different to the table. What that is exactly, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, they brought something different, that's for sure.
They did.
Yeah. And then we also got back feedback on iTunes. So you can go to our iTunes page, and there's a link in the show notes for that, and leave us reviews there. And we got this review here. And it says, great crew. Personalities on the podcast don't all share the same perspective. Like in most podcasts, this crew has amazing community engagement and deserves tremendous credit for that. So, that was really nice. And that is from, let me just pull that up here quick, Swag Surfing. So thank you so much for
Thank you, Swag Surfing.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we love hearing what you have to say about our show and giving us feedback. So please let us know. Go out to iTunes and leave us reviews there. All right, so with that then, let's go ahead and go into our push select review section. And this week we have a couple reviews. So Christian, let's start off with you. You've been playing and beaten.
Yep.
Sekiro.
Yes. I played Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Finished it last weekend.
Unbelievable. How long did it take you to beat the game?
It took me 3 days, but over the course of those 3 days, it was probably 25 hours of playing.
Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And 8 of those hours was just spent on the final boss.
Yeah, I remember you telling me.
Just how you like it, though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, sure. Yeah.
Oh, come on now.
My own words against me now.
Yeah.
That's all I was thinking about when I was fighting that stupid last boss was, I mean, I guess I said I wanted this in Kingdom Hearts, and I got it in Dark Souls, and I don't know if I like it now. So, yeah, Sekiro is a third-person hack and slash from Software made it, the same people who made Dark Souls, and it's hard. This game is difficult. It's not easy. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of persistence, a lot of good reflexes, a lot of close studying of enemy movements, a lot of cycle memorization, and it's very similar to Dark Souls in that respect. And some people really like that. I like a good challenge, and so I thoroughly enjoyed the challenge that Sekiro had to offer.
Is it harder than Dark Souls?
You see, that's a very difficult question for me to answer. I have a very hard time figuring out the answer to that, because Sekiro is different from Dark Souls. It's made by the same people. It's similar in that you've got boss fights that you got to do, hard regular encounters that you have to get through in order to get to the boss. But it's different in that the combat works very differently. Stealth is actually a thing now in Sekiro, which it was not in Dark Souls. And Dark Souls is an RPG, and Sekiro kind of gets rid of all of those mechanisms.
Oh, really?
So in Dark Souls, you had stats, you could level up, you could grind and put points into better stats. But that also kind of lended an air of inaccessibility to Dark Souls, because you were pumping your stat points full of, skill points, but it was never extremely clear whether or not you should be doing that or if you should be investing in a different stat. And the game doesn't tell you that once you get past a certain threshold in Dark Souls stat boosting, that the more stat points you put into a stat, the less impact it has. And then it's just this confusing mess at times. And then when you're fighting a boss, it's not always clear, should I have better equipment right now? Am I not the right level to take this thing on? Should I be a higher level? Should I have a better shield or sword? Am I not using the right element against them? Whereas in Sekiro, it's simple. It's action, hack and slash. You don't have that RPG crap. You've got one sword that you use to kill stuff, and that's it. You kill the stuff. You're good enough or you're not good enough. It doesn't, you don't have to, go out and spend 5 hours grinding to defeat a boss. And so that's something I liked a lot about Sekiro, because it's a lot simpler because of that. I had a lot less self-doubt when I was going through it, because if I got to a boss and I died on it, I could go out and explore a little bit, but I knew that I didn't defeat the boss because of a fault of my own, and not because I didn't find something or I didn't grind enough. And I love that aspect of it.
See, that's interesting, because I feel like I'm the opposite player. I'd rather
I feel like most people would be the opposite. They'd be like, this is too hard. I'm just going to go level up and come back.
Yeah, exactly.
People don't want to have to be confronted with their own inability to just do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
I see. Yeah,
but did it make you feel better though about, like, I mean, it's hard, because I think honestly, out of all the people I know, Christian, like, you are like the most accomplished gamer I think I've ever met. But did you feel like, oh man, I accomplished something awesome there after you beat a boss?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that also that satisfaction was that much better when I did it. Because in Dark Souls, like, if you don't defeat a boss, you can go off and grind forever and then come back and then swipe it away a few times and then it's dead. That's not as satisfying, because you didn't outsmart the boss. You just out-leveled it, and then you pretty much automatically win at that point.
Hey, that's how RPGs work.
I mean, I
that's
suppose
the whole
so.
genre.
That's how RPGs work, largely in turn-based frameworks, to an extent. And that's why when I was a kid, I loved RPGs, because I could just spend all day leveling up all the time. Now, time is finite.
I hear what you're saying. You're saying that RPGs are for kids.
No.
You are above that. You're beyond that now. Your skill's beyond the childish. What is the Bible verse? As a child, I spoke like a child, but now as an adult, I play Sekiro.
Yes.
Amen.
That's why I feel balancing in action RPGs is a very hard thing to get right, because you got to ride this fine line between, like, challenge and allowing the player options, but also, like, requiring the player to use some of those options regardless of, like, how much they level up. You got to be able to account for a wide range of skill sets. You got to account for people who want to just grind through and then destroy things, and then you also got to account for those people who, like, want to do a challenge run, for example, like people who just want to be the least leveled possible and still beat everything. And in some games that's not entirely possible, because they just say, no, sorry, you're not a big enough level. We flick you away until you get up high enough.
Yeah.
So I feel there's a fine line there. But Sekiro is not an RPG. You do level up in some sense, though. So you can go out and progress yourself. You get this prosthetic arm, right? And the prosthetic arm has a bunch of tools you can put on it, like a shuriken that you can throw at stuff. You get a flamethrower that you can flame in people's faces that stuns them if they don't like fire. That's all well and good. You can upgrade those so that they're more effective. That's good stuff. So it's not 100% just your sword, and that's all you worry about. There's some progression going on there. With every boss you kill, you get to use this memory item that increases your attack stat, so you do more attack damage to things. And the combat itself works very differently here than it does in Dark Souls. Like I said, I think it's like a big departure for From Software. So not only can you, like, stealth around and do stealth finishers on things if they don't detect you yet, but also the combat system is hard to wrap your head around, especially if you're a Dark Souls veteran. If you've played other Dark Souls games, I feel like you're going to have a harder time acclimating yourself to Sekiro, because the combat system's so different. So you don't have a stamina meter anymore like you used to. So you can sprint infinitely, you can roll infinite number of times, but you do have a posture meter now. And this posture meter is basically how, like, the thing you're going to focus on in every combat encounter now. So enemies do have a health bar, but that's usually not what you're worried about. You're worried about their posture meter, because as soon as their posture meter starts empty, and as you hit them, their posture meter goes up and up and up, and when it's full, they get stunned. The game plays this note like, and then they get a red circle on them, and then your guy winds up, the camera pulls back, and then you do that one final slice, and then you stab that sword into their chest, you rip it up, you stab them in the face, you do every kind of cathartic type of animated, gory goodness that you could possibly imagine on these bad guys. And then you rip the sword out, and then the blood spurts across the landscape as their lifeless husk of a body falls to the ground, and you claim victory.
Wow.
Feels fantastic. It has great pacing to it. It's got really kinetic feedback, great visual cues. Like, the combat here is just like a masterclass of action game design.
Wow. Yeah, no, it sounds cool. I mean, so, when we talked a little bit about this, it reminds me of the game, and I don't think you played this, right? Tenchu. You've
That's
never
right.
played Tenchu, right?
No, I have not.
And Blue, have you ever played Tenchu?
No.
It was a PlayStation, was it
one game, I think. Yeah, that's where the franchise started, I believe.
That would be why.
And I really loved Tenchu. I mean, it was a lot what you said. I mean, it was a lot of stealth. It was, you couldn't just run in and hack and slash your way into a situation. Like, you would get killed right away. You would have to, like, figure out, like, climbing on building tops, like using a grappling hook to, like, climb up an area, sneak into an area, come up from behind somebody, take them out. And that's what I really loved about Tenchu. So that's why I really was kind of intrigued by this game, because this started out as a Tenchu game, right? Am I right?
Yeah, yep, you're right. Yeah, From Software owns the Tenchu license, so they started out making a Tenchu game, but then they said it kind of morphed into its own thing eventually.
Yeah, so that's what really intrigues me about it. But I just hearing other people talk about it. I mean, even you, Christian, where you spent like 8 hours on the final boss. I would spend 8 hours on the first boss.
Yeah.
I think I would get really frustrated. And I get frustrated with games like Bloodborne, except apparently I've been playing that game wrong. Apparently there's a weapon you can pick up right away in the beginning of the game, and I didn't realize that, and I was trying to, like, beat the first boss with my fist.
Oh, Roger.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And both Landon and Christian were both like, "Are you serious? You were fighting the boss with your fist?" I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't find a weapon." They're like, "Maybe they're better
this
at
game
games
is
than you are."
stupid.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, "This game is the worst game I've ever played. This is so stupid." They're like, "Well, you picked up the weapon, right?" I'm like, "What weapon?"
Oh, boy.
So I really want to give Sekiro a shot, because I really love Tenchu.
Not gonna like it.
I know, that's the thing. Like, I don't want to spend $60 on something that I'm not gonna like. That's my problem.
Yeah.
But, it's very tempting, because I really love the the samurai, and I really love that whole, like, gameplay and the ninjas and I love Tenchu, but that was a different time for me. That was when I was younger and I could play those games. I can't play those games now.
Christian, you just need to have Roger over and let him try it. So
there you
get
go.
It, like, out of his
That'd be a way to
system.
do it.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
So those are all things you liked about it. Was there anything that you were like, you didn't like about it?
Yeah. There's like just little problems that I had with it. Nothing really major, because I mean they get the vast majority of the game right. Like, you do a lot of running around and exploring. That's great. There's a lot of very good, varied locales. But there's a couple of, like, weird stuff around the stealth. The stealth doesn't quite work exactly right. It's very janky. And this is From's, like, first outing as far as stealth is concerned. Like, the combat works very similarly to Dark Souls, but Dark Souls never had stealth. So, like, people will see you even though you're behind them for some reason. That's not really clear. I don't understand. And then when people see you, like, everyone sees you instantly, that typical video game thing. And that's like, oh, gosh dang it. And that's very stressful in Sekiro, because if more than one enemy is ganging up on you, you can pretty much write off your life as dead, because you're not going to be able to coordinate all those guys hitting you at once. Yeah. And I definitely wasn't. So the stealth was a little weird. And then there's one prosthetic arm attachment in particular. There's firecrackers that you can, like, put out with your arm. You, like, put out some firecrackers and they explode in an enemy's face, and they, like, recoil and they, like, hold their eyes for a second because it, like, blinds them temporarily. And that particular prosthetic was a little too useful. Because it made some fights a little too easy. Which, yeah.
Of course it did.
Yeah, it did, which was a little unfortunate.
I would be using it all the time, actually.
Yeah, I mean...
Spamming fireworks.
Absolutely. In order to use your prosthetic arm thing, you can only do it so many times because you have like this consumable thing that you use every time you use it, and it doesn't refill until you rest at a checkpoint. So... like, you can only use it so many times in one encounter. But there's a few encounters where you can just use it, slice a bunch, use it, slice a bunch, and you do that over and over, and then the boss is dead. So, little balancing issues. Stealth is kind of not good all the time. But, I mean, most of your time is spent running around these awesome Japanese areas, like feudal Japan areas, and engaging in the game's fantastic combat. And so, I would absolutely recommend it to, I guess, people who don't mind, banging their head against stuff for a while. People like a challenge in the old school gaming sense. It's like an old video game in the modern era.
Yeah, you made up my mind. I'm not getting this game. So
I tried.
It's for the best.
Yeah, it really is.
You're probably right. Yeah.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah,
Christian.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Blue.
I'm sure you've seen that Forbes article that came out.
I don't know if I did. What is it?
Okay, so somebody came out with a Forbes article, and I don't know the author's name. I would have to look it up. But he said that FromSoft needs to stop disrespecting the gamers and put easy modes in their games so that everybody can play.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I did see that.
Discuss.
Yes.
You're
you just
funny, Blue.
dropped that little grenade right
Yeah.
there. All right.
Yeah. Drop a grenade in a room
away.
and just walk away.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. So, with From Software games, you get a large swath of people. There's something about those games where you get people in comment sections in real life conversations where they're like, yeah, it wasn't hard for me. I don't get what the problem was. You just beat the boss. That's it. Like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? And then if anyone says anything about making the game easier, they're like, don't you dare. I want this status as a person who's beaten Dark Souls. I don't want that for other people to enjoy. I don't want that. And I feel like that's a very elitist attitude. And that's something that, like, it's just not friendly. It's not a friendly attitude to have. I mean, you can have variable difficulties. I'm totally fine with that. Why not? I think that's another problem that I have with Sekiro, which is that it's not very accessible because it's tough. And if you get stuck on an encounter and feel demoralized and not know what to do next, you're going to drop the game after a couple of hours. And that's not fun because there's a story there that you're not going to experience. There's a lot of very cool areas that you're not going to see. And it's all because a certain boss was too hard for you. I feel like that is an issue with From Software's games.
Mm-hmm. And do you think if they added an easy mode, the core FromSoft community would just freak out?
Oh boy. I hope they wouldn't. I think there's a lot of people that would, though. I wouldn't. I personally wouldn't. Oh,
it seems risky to upset the people who are always going to buy your games.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
But it's weird because they can continue to play the hard version or the
exactly.
And it doesn't take away from them. I mean, it's you can say, well, I beat the game on, the hard level. It's the same thing with now that Nintendo's coming out with these games on their Nintendo Switch Online.
Oh yeah, the SP versions.
The SP versions, right? Exactly. Like, well, I beat the game, not the SP version.
Yeah.
But it's great.
Who are we as humans if we can't throw our accomplishments in other people's faces?
Yeah, exactly.
What do we have if you take that away from us?
Yeah, exactly. But
you
it
have
is
trophies.
Nice. Yeah. But it is nice.
You have trophies, Christian.
You're right.
But it is nice that we, that other people can experience that. So, but yeah, I guess trophies though. What did you platinum this game, Christian?
No, I think you have to play it through like 3-4 times in order to get the platinum trophy. But I liked this combat so much. Like after I was done, like I said, it took me like 28 hours after banging my head against the boss for like 8 hours straight. it took me 28 hours, and that felt like on the short end as far as From Software's other games are concerned. Like, I don't think a Dark Souls game has taken me less than 35 hours to get through. And so after the final boss, I felt like jumping straight into New Game Plus, and I did. And I definitely look forward to playing more Sekiro despite finishing it. I had a blast.
And your review, so you wrote a review for this, right?
I did, yes. My review's on newgamenetwork.com.
And what was your final score for it?
I gave it an 85. I think it was fantastic. Loved it a lot. Like I said, there's some issues, and it's incredibly inaccessible. It's not a game for everyone, but it's a game for me, I think.
Nice. Cool. Well, thank you for that, Christian.
Thanks for listening to me talk about Sekiro for like 15 minutes.
Well, I'm going to go into then the Princess Guide. That's the game that I reviewed. And this game is the closest thing that I could compare it to is like a Gauntlet style action, arcade action type.
Does
RPG.
it play like Gauntlet?
Yeah, well, it kind of does in a way. I would say in a way. So
I was making a joke.
Oh, I get it because the controller throwers love.
Yeah, okay. Never mind.
No, but what was funny about that was I was watching their show, actually, their stream, and they mentioned this game coming out, and I said to them, you all should love this game because it's Gauntlet. But it's so you are give you a background of it. You are a seasoned soldier that has given up, or not given up, but retired from the warrior life, and now you are set out to start a new phase in your life, and that is to train these 4 princesses, and train them in combat to become, I guess, great warriors. And so you, so throughout the game, even though you're retired, you still actually can fight with your squads, which is interesting. But so you can start off by picking one of the 4 different princesses, and each princess has their own personality type and their own like sense of humor. I will say, like, the humor in this game is actually really good. I laughed a lot at some of the characters and some of the things that they said, and so you take on the part of being their sensei, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And you and then so each level has different things that are going on. So like one of the princesses, Monomari, like for instance, her kingdom, her parents died at an early age, and her kingdom is really poor, but she wants to like do the right thing and be the right person and lead her people into victory. And there's some people that are stealing these relics. So relics are like kind of a key in this whole game. They're scattered throughout the whole game, and this one person trying to steal relics and like take them for their own. So she feels it's honorable that she needs to like bring her kingdom back to power and like earn the money and respect of her people. But through the game, what's kind of cool about this is that the cool aspect about this is that you can praise or scold the princesses based on what they do or what they say. So like during the story parts, you might be able to scold or praise them for certain things, and then your interaction with them and the story changes as well. And in fact, there's 3 different endings for each princess. So there's 4 different princesses. So there's 12 different endings in this game based on how you interact with the princesses. So like Monomari, I think that's how I pronounce her name. She's very hard on herself, but I have a hard time scolding anybody. So I was always.
Should we get your kids on here and ask them?
Yeah,
exactly. I know, right? So I was always praising her, and whatever. The only person I did scold was there's a witch. I can't think of her name right now, but she likes to turn people into frogs, and I scolded her for that. I'm like, don't do that. And then she stopped turning people into frogs because of that.
I'd be like, you're not my mom.
Yeah. But throughout the game, so I will say, like, probably it's a little daunting at first, because when you first learn it, there's a lot of tutorials about the battle, but there's so much to going on. So like one button, you hold the certain button combination to do this kind of attack, and hold these buttons to do this kind of attack, and there's a special attack for your weapons, so you use that to do that. And it feels daunting at first, and it feels really intimidating, but after a while, it just becomes second nature, and you start building a strategy around like how you're going to play the game. And each character you have a squad of soldiers that you lead with them. So those also have their own abilities and their own special attacks as well. And then you go through the story mode for each princess, and there's different things for each princess. Like one, for instance, there is one where you might have to lead a caravan. So like Monomari's first mission is that there's a caravan of goods that are traveling through her country, and she wants you to help her protect them. And then there's an overview of the map, and there's monsters that go around, and you have to make sure that the caravan doesn't get attacked by these monsters. And then you take your squads, or you take your characters, and you kind of place them. It's a strategy type thing. You place them on the map, and you can have your character has a squad, and then the princess has a squad, and you can also hire commanders as well and build their squads as well, and you can send them up across the map. And some of these missions are timed, so you have to make sure that you do them in the time frame that you're allowed to do that. And then when you hit one of these monsters on the overview map, then it takes you into an arena like area, and that's where it comes very much like Gauntlet, where you go around and you attack the monsters, and there's chests around, and you collect the different chests and get different money and stuff like that. And then sometimes there's mini bosses or even final bosses on these maps as well that you have to beat. So and then there's RPG elements to the game too. So your princess, not only can you praise and scold them, which also raise her stats, but then you also earn what's called materia, and you use that to also level up your princess. So you teach her this material, this knowledge that you gain while playing the game, and that raises her stats. But that also gives you skill points as well. So any material that you teach her, you get skill points, and then you do the traditional leveling up your own character with those skill points as well. So it's, I will say that I liked the game a lot. I did read some people's reviews that they complained that you can't block in the game, and it's you go through the game, there's no blocking, you can't dodge. Well, you can dodge, you can just run around, but this is how those games are. I mean, like Gauntlet, you couldn't block in Gauntlet. Like you just, you fought your way through. Like that was the premise of the game, and that's how this game plays too. But the couple things that I will say that were a little bit frustrating. For instance, the materia, like where you have to train your princesses with the materia. There's not anything that really kind of describes like what some of that materia does and what the leveling up does for those characters, or in what all different material you can get. I wish there was like a list of like, here's how you can earn it, because like I earned one by defeating a level with less than 50% of my health left. I'm like, wow, that was cool, and it was a really powerful one, and I didn't even realize that was a possibility. So they didn't really describe that very well. And the other thing, the other complaint that I had was that when you beat a level, you're only given a couple seconds after that to collect any kind of treasure chests that were in the area that were there. So make sure you always collect the treasure chest before you beat the last bad guy, because you will not be able to get it beforehand. And sometimes there's weapons in there that you really want. So make sure that you always open up the treasure chest before beating the last bad guy. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it was it's like, if you like, it plays like Gauntlet. If you like Gauntlet.
Speaking of Gauntlet, does it have multiplayer, Roger?
That's the one thing it doesn't. It doesn't have multiplayer.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I wish it did.
I wanted to see Roger and Christian playing princesses.
Yeah. That would be great.
That would have been great. Yeah, it doesn't have multiplayer. I wish it did, because that would have been really fun, too. It does not, though.
Speaking of difficulty, we just talked about Sekiro, Roger.
Yeah.
How hard is it? Is it like tough? Are there variable difficulties?
So, so I know why you asked me, because there was a couple times where I got really frustrated when I was playing this.
Yeah. So
I will say that it's difficult. Sometimes, like, you'll die a couple times, but then one thing that you start earning weapons, and then you can apply those weapons, and then things get a lot easier. So what I would always suggest people to do is try different weapons. There's so many different kind of weapons in this game, and each weapon has their own special ability. And you might find that even though the attack of the weapon may not be very high, the special ability will help you tremendously. And depending on like how you play the game, you might, in your strategy, you might find different weapons work best for you. The first half of the game, which took me about 10 hours to play through the first half. And that first half wasn't all that difficult, but once I got to the second half, it got a lot harder. Like, it ramped up the difficulty. So after you lead the first 4 princesses, then after that, you get to pick one princess that you can lead through the rest of the mission. You can pick their mission and help them finish their story. And it ramped up pretty high. But there's a crafting ability where you can craft weapons. So the first half of the game, the crafting ability, you'll find better weapons than you can craft. But when you play in the second half, always make sure you craft weapons because you're going to get better weapons. And that's going to help you tremendously.
I got you.
Once I started doing that, then I was like, okay, like this is a lot easier now. Because I have better weapons. So, but there is a Game Plus as well. So after you beat the game, you can play a little bit harder, a little bit more difficult. So that does add some more challenge as well. I wouldn't say it's no Sekiro, that's for sure, but it was challenging. And I think for people that are looking for a game that they're expecting that it's they're going to be able to dodge and block and stuff like that, you're not going to have that. You're going to have to use a lot of skill to like level up your character by praising them. Sometimes you can praise your princesses and give them HP, or you find relics throughout the whole thing. There's like mana statues that are relics that you can find, and they're actually placed very well. Where you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm just about to die, and then you find a mana relic, and you're like, yay, I can build my character. So it's a different twist on the JRPG, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that is also on our website. So you can see my review there and on GamerHeadsPodcast.com, and I gave the game an A-. I really liked it a lot.
Very high grade.
Yeah.
Very.
So, all right. So that is our review section, and then we'll go into what we're playing next. So, Blue, since Christian and I have been talking for the last half an hour, what have you been playing?
This week I went to a retro arcade.
Oh, wow.
Oh, nice.
And it was very fun, but I ended up spending most of my time with Magic Sword.
Ooh. What's that?
It's, I'd never heard of it before. Apparently it's ported to the Super Nintendo as well, but it's, basically, it's a platformer and you hack at things with your sword, and then you are trying to work your way up to the floors of this castle. And at the top, of course, there's the horrible demon that holds the stone of power or whatever it is, and you've got to stop him. So, you go and you jump on the platforms and you open the chests and you rescue people who are locked up in dungeons along the way, and you work your way up to the floor. And I don't know, I just thought it was really fun. Cool. And so I put a lot of quarters into it, and then it gives you a countdown. Every time you go to the next floor up, it gives you a countdown of how many floors you have left.
Oh, that's cool.
So I found that to be very motivating.
Yeah.
So after many quarters, I got up to the top, and I beat the demon, and then it's at the end, like as he's dying, he drops the stone and he says, now you need to take up the stone yourself and take my place and bring about darkness to the world or something like that. Yeah. And then it gives you a choice. Do you take the stone or do you destroy it?
Wow.
And I was like, I panicked a little bit. I was like, no, I better destroy it. And so I destroyed it, and darkness was defeated. And then I was left wondering, but what happens? But I didn't have enough quarters to start.
I was going to say, here's another 20. Let's go fight.
I know. So I was like, I was just talking to somebody on Twitter, and they're like, oh yeah, I have that on Super Nintendo. I was like, I need that.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Mm-hmm.
How much, can I ask, how much did you spend on the game?
Probably like $8.
Oh, that's not too bad, actually.
No, it's not bad.
And was it really challenging, or did you find it to be
No,
Like-
I mean, because you know how it is. Well, at least for me anyway. Most of the time when I walk into those places, the arcade cabinets control so much differently
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
than they do with controllers, and I'm used to controllers, so I often have a hard time playing games as an arcade cabinet that I'm perfectly fine with at home. But this one, I don't know, I just went in and the jumping made sense and everything made sense, and so I was like, I clicked with it. It was there. It was meant for me to find it there.
Nice. Cool. And how many? So was this? I mean, is there a lot of games in this place? Because like, there's not a lot of arcades by us. That's for sure. That's
No, this one it's got a couple. It's a big place. It's got 3-4 like side rooms, I guess.
Wow,
It's pretty cool.
that is really cool.
But the first thing that I went to was the Star Wars pinball because that's my favorite pinball.
Oh,
I
what,
used to-
which Star Wars is it? Which Star Wars pinball?
I don't know. It's just regular Star Wars, but
Star Wars?
it's the one where you can. I used to be so good as a kid because it's got like the Death Star in
Yes?
there, and it's got
Is
like
R2-D2 in there?
Yep.
Yes, my dad owns that one. I grew up playing that religiously.
No way. It's awesome, right? Because
It is.
You can hit things and make R2 move and make the Death Star move, and then
Yes.
you do the run on the Death Star and you can blow it up, and
Yes.
it's really fun. But so anyway, I was playing that at the arcade, and I got the tri-ball, and it didn't do anything.
Oh no.
And then I got the error message that said the machine doesn't have 3 balls. It only
Oh,
has
no.
1 ball.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so then the game just kind of crashed and started
Oh,
over, and I was like,
no.
what?
Oh, weird.
So, yeah, there's no point playing if you can't get the tri-ball.
Oh,
Yeah.
you said
Aw, that's too
Yeah.
bad.
Worst ever.
Aw,
So,
I love pinball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good Star Wars table.
that's the best pinball machine ever.
Nice.
Whoa.
And I will stand by that statement.
Really?
Anybody
When
wants
there's 3
to fight me, come at me.
There's 3 balls.
When there's 3 balls, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so I spent time at the Retro Arcade, and then I also finished up Evoland Legendary Edition finally. Took me long enough.
Oh, so you finished Evil Land 2 then?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, it was super fun. It's so cute. It's not a difficult time. It's just a fun time. And I really enjoyed how, because the game travels between, like, you've got present day, and then you can go into the future or past or like far past. And each time you go, it switches gaming generation. So like the far past is the Game Boy, and then you go to 8-bit and 16-bit, and then you go to like PlayStation 1 areas. And so it's really fun switching between the different timelines and seeing how the things that you did in one timeline affected the others.
Oh,
that's cool.
That was really fun.
That is cool.
And then, of course, like I talked about last week, they have the game of cards in there, which I was completely obsessed with. And
You must have stopped playing it at some point if you finished it.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
But only because, like, I beat the story, and that was fine. But then I, like, had to go because there's 61 cards that you can collect, and so I had to get them all.
Oh. Did you get them all?
I did get them all.
Oh,
Nice.
wow.
You can only get the last one from, like, the card master in the past village or whatever, and it took
That's awesome.
He's pretty hard to beat, but I did finally do it. I got all the cards. I beat everyone. I am the undisputed Game of Cards king
Wow.
in the land.
Wow.
And then I was like, well, now what do I do?
Oh.
Like, my life feels empty and void of
Oh,
purpose.
no. Oh, yeah.
And I was going to start Beat Cop,
Oh yeah.
but, like, I was like, I'm not ready to let go of Evil Land.
Oh.
Oh. Oh, that's sad. Games like that don't come around all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just really liked this one for whatever reason. I can't believe that more people don't know about it.
Yeah. I think it's what I said before. There's so much noise on the eShop that game gets buried.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I'm playing it on PlayStation, so
Oh, you are okay.
yeah.
I
But
didn't realize it came out on PlayStation. Cool.
yeah, so the interesting thing is that as I was completing it, it shows you trophies on your home screen that you've gotten. And so I noticed I was collecting the trophies for Evoland, and they were all bronze. And then when I was first starting the game, I was like, oh, okay, that's normal. And then I got farther and farther into it, and the trophies were still all bronze. Huh. And then finally, when I put the game down, after I got all the cards, I was at like 97.8% completion. Whoa. And all my trophies are still bronze. What? I was like, what the heck? Are there only bronze trophies? Or, like, do you just get one, like, platinum one at the end? What is going on? I don't know.
You don't know?
I
don't know.
Well, I was expecting an end to this, and then I got my first platinum.
I don't know. No, I didn't go back for 100%, but, yeah, normally I don't care about trophies, but I just thought it was odd. Yeah. Like, surely getting all of the cards and becoming a card master is not a bronze level achievement.
Yeah, no kidding. Weird. That sounds like a gold for sure.
Whatever. Anyway.
I think there's like weird trophy regulations where like your trophy list has to fit into one of two categories, and that's platinum or no platinum. Mm-hmm. And then in that category, your trophies have to have like a certain cumulative score. So if you have a gold, you can't have very many silvers, and you can only have so many bronze. Oh. And then, but if you have a ton of bronze, then you can only have like one gold or one silver even in order to add up to the right, like whatever arbitrary number Sony said is the right number.
Huh.
That's weird. Because like I said, I'm at like 97.8% completion. How many more trophies could there possibly be?
Yeah. Not many then. Because, the percentage, like, gold trophies are a higher percentage than a bronze trophy is, too.
Anyway. Anyway, I will be writing up a review for that Evoland on the Loot Gaming. It will be up soon. And, but bottom line is, it's very fun, and I highly recommend it.
Nice. Ooh. Cool. Anything else?
Nope.
What about you, Christian?
So, I've been reviewing Space Junkies for Push Square.
Oh.
It is a Ubisoft, PlayStation VR, Oculus Rift VR, and HTC Vive VR game. And it's a first-person shooter. Multiplayer, competitive first-person shooter. So, in VR, you don't need me to tell you this. Maintaining a steady player base in multiplayer VR is a nightmare. Like, I've played, like, there was this MOBA. I think I talked about it here, the MOBA VR game Megalith. And, like, day of release, I was having a hard time finding people to match with because not only do you need a VR headset, not only do you need to be able to stomach a game like that, but you also need to shell out the premium VR price for the game, let alone the headset and all the peripherals. And needless to say, it's hard to find people to play games with.
How much are the VR games? What do they go for?
It's very inconsistent. Like right now, it's usually more than like the equivalent of a non-VR game would be. So like this Space Junkies, this like really pared back first-person multiplayer only shooter is $40. Or like that Megalith thing I think was also $40. This pared back multiplayer only little MOBA thing. Because it's in VR, I feel like they charge like a premium because I mean, it probably costs more on the development end to create something like that. But it's still more expensive for some reason. But the way Space Junkies tries to get around the player issue is that it's completely cross-play. So when you're matching for a lobby, PlayStation players can play with Oculus players who can play with Vive players. So odds are you're going to find someone. And I have found people, which is great. And I haven't had an issue getting into a match or anything. But the problem is these VR headsets don't have the same capabilities. So you've got different controllers going on. You've got the HTC Vive, which has room scale so that these people can move around their entire room while maintaining in tracking distance. Whereas the PlayStation, you've kind of only got your front 180 degrees of movement, and that's about all you get. And the game kind of treats PlayStation players as second-class citizens, which is weird. So in the game, it's just, it's this first-person shooter like back in the old days where you run around, pick up, like there's set item pickups throughout the maps. So you'll want to memorize the armor area so that you can fly through there and get some armor. it takes place in space, so you're moving in this 3-dimensional space, floating around in these jetpacks. And you pick up guns, shoot at people, said and done. You try and get the most kills at the end, you win. But like the game has this weird like 2-hand tracking thing. So like before a match or after a match or during a match, you can like move your arms independently, wave at people, stuff like that. Everyone else is doing this. They're like making hearts with their hands. They're doing fist bumps. They're doing high fives. And then I'm like, yeah, I want to high five you. But on the PlayStation VR version, you can only use the controller. You can't use the move controllers.
Oh.
And so your hands are stuck in this weird like Madonna Vogue position. So like all you can do is like do the robot. That's about all you can do. You can't do a fist bump. You can't do a high five. You can't do a wave without your wrists look like they're contorting inside of your arm. And everyone's like, oh, this person's a PlayStation player. We're just going to go away now and not socially interact with them.
That's funny.
And it's very weird because of that. It's not...
That's so funny.
It makes me sad. I just want to say hi to these people because I feel like VR, like competitive shooter, fine, whatever. But like socially interacting with people in VR, I think is awesome.
Yeah.
But that's severely limited given that your hands have to be glued to this controller and the controller is the only way that it can map your hands in the space. And also because of that, other people are like, you can dual wield guns. And other people can shoot those guns in different directions, but since you've got a controller, you can't do that. You can only shoot on one spot. And that isn't a huge issue. There's 2-handed weapons that you can get a hold of that don't take the second hand into account. But there's still some balancing problems with how they're meshing all these VR platforms together. But overall, it's a fine game. I mean, VR games aren't complex right now. It's very simple. You level up and you get a loot box that you can bolt on a cosmetic onto your character. But the polish is good. Polish is good, especially as far as VR games are concerned. And you can shoot at people if that's your thing. But I don't think we're going to be talking about this game in a year from now.
Is it a battle? Is it a battle royale?
No, it's just 2v2. That's it, 2v2.
Okay.
And that's another thing. With the player base, VR Battle Royales exist, but I feel like they would have a very hard time getting players.
Yeah.
And like with Space Junkies, if you just do 2v2, usually you can get enough people to fill a full lobby. But usually is the key word there, because even with 4-player lobbies, you're not always going to find a full lobby.
Yeah. That was the problem with Star Trek Bridge Crew.
Oh, yeah.
That one was originally all just VR, and then they had to make it where it wasn't VR.
Yeah.
And that was actually an Ubisoft game too, I think, or it was published, right?
Yep,
so,
I believe you're right.
So then they made it non-VR too, because you need a whole crew of people to be able to fly on shit.
Yeah, totally.
That's funny.
But yeah, that's Space Junkies. That's about all I've been playing.
Nice. For myself, I have been playing, besides The Princess Guide, I have been playing, actually played it quite a bit. So the other game that I did review, it's on our site, is called Battloon. I think that's how you pronounce it. Battloon. So it is the purest Battle Royale version out there.
100 balloons drop into a map?
4.
4 balloons.
Up to 4 balloons.
So it's Space Junkies.
It's Space Junkies with balloons. And you take your balloon, and it's like bumper cars. So you fill your balloon with air, and then you bump into the other balloons that your opponents are, and you try to smash them into spikes on the walls. And then after each round, if you knocked so many people out, if you get a KO, then you get so many points for that. And then whoever has there's like a line where you earn so many points at this point you're the final victor. So it takes about probably 2 to 3 rounds to if you're really good to win the whole thing. So you can play up to 4 players. It's simple. Like they have the cool thing was they had several different balloon types that you can pick from. So there's like one big giant balloon that is hard to bounce around, but he takes a really long time to fill up. And then there's like a bird that's really easy to fill up with air, and he moves really fast, but he doesn't do much like in regards to bouncing into people. And then there's an Astro Cat that is a cat on a balloon, and then there's a rainbow that's behind them. So it's a cute game, and it's super easy. Like my family played it when we were actually in St. Louis, all 4 of us. We just put down the Switch and My wife brought her Switch too, so we brought her controllers and we all 4 played it.
Ooh.
So my 4-year-old was able to play it too. He never won, but he was able to play. But there's no single player. Like, you have to play with somebody, and like that's not always the easiest thing. So, but it was simple, and it's on the Switch, so that's available to you. And you can read our review on GamerHeadsPodcast.com. I gave the game a C+. But you can read more about that on our website. And then the other games I've been playing Mark of the Ninja. So speaking of ninja games, and in that game you can it's Mark of the Ninja. You can do stealth, and you're a ninja, and you kill people. You played this game, Christian?
I have not. No.
Oh, okay. Have you, Blue?
No.
Okay. So you go into areas, and it's like all like hand-drawn animation, it's hand-drawn animation, and it's voice acting too. So you have these enemies that are kind of patrolling the area, and then you take these darts and you take out the lights, and it's really funny to hear these characters. They're like, what was that? The light's out. How did that happen? No, it's probably nothing. Just keep going. But then they sometimes see you and they're like, he's here. Oh God, he's here. Oh, I can't find him. He probably left. And I'm like hiding in a like vent. I'm like, oh, I didn't leave yet. I'm waiting.
Is it voice acted?
Yeah, the characters are like the.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's crazy, especially for like a 2D animated indie game of the Xbox arcade era.
Yeah,
I don't think that's common.
Yeah, it was really cool. I mean, I have a couple of missions in, and I'm really enjoying it. It's really fun. That's why I was like, maybe I'll like Sekiro, but probably not. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I've been playing that, and then I've been playing Neo Atlas 1469, which is an exploring game. So you like have a trade company, and you are trade company out of Portugal, and you are exploring the world. And the world is like all what do they call it? Like a fog, right? Like a war of fog.
Yeah, fog of war.
Fog of war. But so you can't see anything around it. So as your explorers go out and explore different areas, they'll come back and say, this is how we think the world looks. And it could be like our world really looks, or it may not. It might be something completely different, depending on if you agree or disagree with the reports. And it's a really interesting concept, and I think that's really neat. And then you find new like materials out there, and you can set up trade routes between different materials. So like I found pearls and I found a ring, and I set up a trade route, and we created pearl rings, and now I'm selling those. And then we found grapes, and we found barrels, and I started making wine, so I've been selling that. So, and then you find different merchants that will say like, oh, like I'm looking for this. Can you find me? Like I found this one guy who wants to find potatoes. So he's like, if you can find me potatoes, I'll pay you money for that. So, so it's an interesting game. And you have a fleet of ships, and you have these admirals that you get to pay, but you have to make sure that you have enough money to be able to pay your admirals. So it is a little complicated, but I'm enjoying it. So I've been playing that.
Are you like establishing a city-state, like a trade empire?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the king has been sending you out. You get commissioned by the king basically to basically work for the king and establish these trade routes. So.
Okay. Are you moving around, or do you have a static location?
Your ships move around. So
ships move. I gotcha.
Yep. So your fleets do, and then you can move your fleets to different areas, and you can launch them from different areas. And based on like your admiral's charisma, whether or not they'll allow you to be in that area or not. So that sounds really interesting. It's fun. It reminds me of Civilization in some ways, but because you find different areas on the map. Like I found like the pyramids, and you find that right away. But
is there an ultimate goal you're working towards, or is it just kind of trade stuff?
I think the ultimate goal is that you want to become well, right now, I don't know if this is the ultimate goal or not, but they want to set up trade companies in this land of the gold, like beyond India, they call it. And some people are saying the world is flat, so you can't go to the west. But like, I have one admiral that's a like scholar, and he's like, no, the world's one around. We can go west from Portugal. But we're trying to go around Africa right now. We think that we can do that instead, so we're trying that. So,
oh, that sounds neat.
Yeah, so it's a cool game. And then the last game I'll mention that I've been playing is called Gems of War.
What?
It's a game that came out on a Switch this week, and it's a free to play game. But it reminds me of Puzzle Quest. If you've never played Puzzle Quest, it reminds me a lot of that. So it's a match 3 type game, like Bejeweled. But then you have like different characters that can do different abilities when you match their colors, and then you're taking on your opponents, and then you attack them. It's kind of like Magic the Gathering and Bejeweled mixed. Does that sound like right up your alley, Blue?
I'm gonna go home and download it as soon as we're done.
It's free to play. Free to play.
Even better.
So those are the games I've been playing. The other thing I'll just mention quick is yesterday was the very first RGB Retro Game Brews tournament challenge.
Yeah, that was fun. Too bad Mike isn't here.
I know. Because Mike and I both participated in it, and we both lost in our first round, but we both participated. That was fun. We played F-Zero, and I lost to the eventual champion, so, I mean, who knows how far I would have gotten if I didn't take him on in the first round, right? Even though my time was a lot slower than anybody else in the tournament.
Oh, man.
But it was so fun. I will say this is so funny. So the person that took the game was Mega Retro Man. So congrats to him. And before, when we were in the lobby waiting to be introduced, I said, well, good luck. And he said, yeah, you too. And I said, yeah, you're going to beat me. And I said, I've only played this for like the last 10 minutes before the tournament actually started. And he's
man.
oh no, I feel bad. I'm like, don't feel bad. Like, seriously. Like,
okay, yeah. If he ever felt bad about beating anyone, we'd have seen it by now. But Mr. Tetris and Dr. Mario world record doesn't ever seem like he feels bad and holds back. No.
Well, that's the thing. But so when they announced who I'm taking on, right? They set up the bracket. I'm like, oh, Mega Retro Man. I went out to his Twitter account, and it's like, it said like he was semi-retro pro gamer, like multiple championship holder, world championship holder for Tetris and other games. And I'm like, what? And then you got me, who's like, wait, what button hits the gas now?
Yep, somebody had to be sacrificed to make a Retro Man in the first round, and I guess you draw the short straw. But
I guess, yeah.
In the end, you'd have lost him one way or the other.
Yeah, that's true. I would have lost to anybody in the first round, so it didn't bother me. I thought it was fun. So, but yeah, it was fun. The world record somebody posted for F-Zero, the first that Mute City, was like 1:57, I think. I think that was the world record, and my time was 2 minutes and 24 seconds. Which really, like, if we were like running like actual races, I'd be really proud of myself that I was only like less than 30 seconds behind the world record. But we're not. It was a video game, so it was fun. But that was a good time. I hope that we have more of those, because that was a lot of fun. Blue, I hope that you get to compete next time too.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
So, well, with that, let's take a break here quick, and then when we'll come back, we'll get into our hot topic. So stay tuned. And welcome back to GamerHeads. This week, our hot topic is: do the digital services really mean the end of gaming as we know it? And I feel fine. So,
panic in the streets. There's fire raining down from the heavens.
Yeah. So I mean,
it's digital gaming's fault.
It is. I know. Well, so I was, being away. I didn't check Twitter constantly. I tried to keep up with the news and stuff like that. But Blue, like you said, like I remember, like we're just chatting in messages and stuff like that, and you were like, "Oh my God, you would think that Google's announcement meant the end of the world is happening."
Basically.
So did you see a lot of? Because I guess I didn't get to see a whole lot of reaction. What was some of the reaction that we saw in regards to Google's Stadia?
Yeah, so basically what Google announced with the Stadia was 3 main fronts on which they were going to innovate for gaming. And of course, you've got their streaming service, and then you've got the developer tools, which I really didn't understand much of what they were explaining, but it all looked very cool. And then you've got the tools for streamers, different ways that they can stream and interact with their followers. So there was 3 aspects to the announcement, right? But basically what people said was that, oh, it's just another streaming service. It's lame. It's never going to work, blah, blah, blah. And I am not a Google apologist by any means. I mean, when we first discussed this, I mean, you guys saw, I was like, no, I have major concerns about Google as a company. Yeah. But people were so negative about the Stadia that I was like, well, we haven't even seen it yet. They made a announcement. You haven't even given them a chance to show what it can do. And people are already saying that it's, it's dead in the water and whatever. So it's like, okay, well, now the more that people are like ragging on it, I want it to succeed now, just because.
Yeah.
But then the other part of it was that people were saying that, this will be the end of gaming. There's no physical whatsoever in the Google Stadia, and if this works, we're never going to own another game again. We're never going to be able to play our old stuff. We're going to be beholden to Google forever, blah, blah, blah. Basically, this is the gaming apocalypse. So I wanted to talk about that. I think that the doom and gloom and the panic is maybe a little overwrought and unwarranted, but what do you guys think?
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's I kind of want to explore that first, that first thing that you mentioned there, the last thing you mentioned there. I guess not the first thing. The last thing you mentioned was the, not owning games anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, so Christian, you said that, because I thought it was going to be a streaming service too, like similar to Netflix, but it sounds like possibly you'd be buying games. But still, the whole idea of digitally owning games is kind of weird, right? Because, like, well, I mean, I've had experiences. I mean, I think Blue, you mentioned this in the past. I'm not sure if you mentioned this, Christian, but like where we bought a game online, and then they pull it for whatever reason because they don't have the rights anymore. And then if you don't have that downloaded anymore, it's gone. You don't own that. You paid money for it and it's gone. Like it happened to me with Marvel vs. Capcom, one of the Marvel vs. Capcom games. I had that game, and then I was like, oh, I need to make room for my hard drive, so I deleted it, and then it was off the market, and I can't buy it anymore. Mm-hmm. So I guess what do you think that means by owning games? Won't be able to own games anymore. And what do you think that means for like collecting games or game collectors, and even for the brick and mortar stores? What do you think that all means?
Well, okay, here's my take on it. I think that digital gaming is the future, whether people like it or not. And
look it up, Buttercup.
basically, because it's funny to me that people are so clinging so tightly to their physical copies of games, because music has moved to streaming, movies have moved to streaming, television shows have moved to streaming, and I understand that games are more of an interactive experience than those other things, but people buy digital music and nobody worries about, in 10 years whether they're going to lose it or not. But it's funny to me because people like to make fun of elderly people for clinging to the past We're clinging to outdated technologies. And then I feel like we're seeing this shift, generational shift take place in real time before our eyes when people freak out about digital gaming. And this is, I don't know, this may earn me many enemies, whatever. But digital gaming doesn't have one face. It doesn't look one way. So rather than saying, if we can't have our physical game cartridges or discs, then there is no gaming. Let's work towards a digital future where we can address this problem and keep our games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that, I mean, the people that are upset about, or, how you mentioned how, our grandparents are all like, oh, I can't believe, the change in things and blah, blah, blah. Like, where's our beta players? Do you think that do you think that it's the older players that are saying this? Do you think it's younger gamers? Do you think it's a mixture of both?
No, my impression is that it's overwhelmingly older gamers.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That they see that there's a shift happening. It's new. We don't like it. We don't trust it. And I know that a lot of them do have experiences, like you were saying, Roger, where they have totally lost games before, when rights were lost or they were pulled from servers or whatever, and that sucks. But I mean, like I was saying, that doesn't mean that has to continue. That's a problem we should address. But it doesn't mean that we need to stay away from digital gaming. Those are two different issues.
Yeah.
And I think PC is kind of ahead of the curve as far as digital games are concerned, because the PC has largely been mostly digital for like the past 10 years plus. Like if you go into any brick and mortar store, the PC retail space is almost non-existent because pretty much everyone just installs their games on Steam, which is a completely digital platform, and people don't worry about it. They don't fuss about it. They didn't put up a big fuss, at least not that I was aware of, when discs started going away, because you didn't have to, open up your CD drive and then put in 6 discs to install the rest of the game while you're just waiting for it to get done.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you go to, certainly I don't think GameStop sells computer games. Walmart still does, but their section is super small. At least in our stores, like their computer gaming section is super small.
Mm-hmm.
Although they're trying to go into more of the gaming laptops and desktops, which is interesting. But PC seems to have accepted this, but there's something about console games where. But I wouldn't even say this is a console game now that we know more about it. I would say this is more in line with what Steam has done for the PC,
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, this is not a question I had written down, but I want to ask, who do you think this is competing with? Google, who do you think Google's going to be competing with? Do you think they're going to be competing with the consoles, or do you think they're going to be competing with more of the PC gamers for their time, I should say?
It kind of looked to me like they thought they were going to compete with everybody.
Yeah, I think that's what it looked like, but I think that they're probably going to have some kinks to iron out as far as performance and response time is concerned, despite the fact that they're in a good spot if their numbers are anything to be believed. But I think for me, the way I think Google Stadia will find success is by finding a whole new segment of the market, is carving out their own segment of the market, people who don't want the inaccessibility of having to figure out what box they're supposed to buy, especially in the world where there's multiple SKUs of consoles, and then figure out what kind of TV they need to play it on, and then figure out what kind of cords they need to hook it up with, and then after that, get the games on top of it. They'll be able to go on a Google site, pay some X amount of dollars, and then boom, they're playing a video game, which is crazy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you think that Oh, go ahead, Christian.
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say it. I think it'll just reduce that barrier to entry to people who currently feel the video game market is inaccessible.
Do you think, though, our internet infrastructure is going to be able to, I guess, do that for people? Because I think they say you have to have, and maybe this is not that big of a deal, but I think they said you have to have a 30 what is it, megabits per second?
Megabit per second.
megabit per second speed, I think, to be able to play these games. I mean, I don't. My concern is I don't know if some places in even the country where the internet is that we don't have that capability. And two, now that there's even talks about putting data caps, like, do you think those two things are going to hurt this strategy of digital gameplay overall?
I think it will. I think it will keep Stadia out of the hands of people in rural America and people in underdeveloped internet infrastructure regions. But I also think that places where there's a very high population density usually have very good internet infrastructure, and those places should have no problem getting it until like internet is like more ubiquitous, and potentially if 5G is available to the masses, that could hopefully smooth over some of that friction that's going on with internet and data caps and inaccessibility for rural communities. But that's still pie in the sky at this point. So yeah, I think it'll get into the hands of the people who live in already densely populated areas. Yeah. So that will limit it to some extent, but I think it'll still get into the hands of quite a few people.
Yeah, I have to believe that Google is not so stupid as to have completely disregarded average internet speeds throughout the country and not taking that into consideration.
Yeah.
They must feel at least somewhat confident that they can pull this off, or why would they even be announcing it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Blue, we've seen, a lot of stores like GameStop and other stores that have been struggling with their numbers and in other retail stores. Do you think this is the death knell for the brick and mortar stores?
I don't know, maybe, but I mean, it's not that different from many other brick and mortar stores. I mean, when's the last time you saw a bookstore?
Yeah.
Wow.
Or Blockbuster went by the wayside, which good riddance, personally. But, and like you said, Best Buys are struggling, and many brick and mortar stores are struggling. Malls are struggling. That's just so the age we live in. And so if game stores if they go by the wayside, they're just catching up with much of the rest of our world, really.
Mm-hmm.
They're not
That's
special.
Yeah, that's a good point. The other thing that I was going to mention in one of the questions I have here is that the Stadia. God, I can never pronounce that.
Long A, Stadia.
Stadia is going to push YouTube, right? Because obviously Google owns YouTube. Do you think this will change the streaming communities? And do you think it will hurt Twitch at all? And do you think there'll be a difference between the streaming communities between YouTube and Twitch? I mean, I think there is some change. I think there's some differences now, but the way that it looked, at least in their promo, was that people can just be watching somebody stream a YouTube stream and then just jump in and start playing with them and communicate and interact with them. It seems like they're trying to build a really simple entry into playing the game through YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Do you think it'll hurt Twitch?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, we don't know if it proves successful. We don't know what kind of changes Twitch may make in response.
Oh, that's true.
And, we also don't know which is a better deal for the streamers themselves as far as their revenue. I know that I hear a lot of complaints about YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Switch is better, but I imagine unless Google can just put out the greatest exclusives ever and force streamers over to them with those, I imagine the streamers will stick with whichever platform is better for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what would make sense to me too, is that Twitch wouldn't change drastically as a result, because people there, they have their communities there. They know audience knows where to go to get their stuff. They've got the Twitch alerts set up so that they can go there. And also Twitch offers a lot of customization options for people to personalize their stream so that whenever someone donates, they can make a nice little splash screen pop up. They can make donation bosses so that people can donate millions of dollars to kill this arbitrary boss that's on the bottom of the Twitch layout. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like those people are in their element and they won't have a reason to switch not only what platform they're streaming to, but also the thing they're playing the game on so that they can stream on this other thing. I think, if anything, what Stadia will do is allow people who currently don't create content to stream because it'll make it a lot more accessible for them. They can just, theoretically, they don't have to worry about, encoding, video encoding. They don't have to worry about what kind of capture card they have. They don't have to worry about what kind of computer they're hooked up to in order to process all that video, encode it, and then put it up on the internet and they need to have the right internet bandwidth in order to make sure it does that at a decent bit rate. No need to worry about that anymore. All you would need is Stadia and a microphone, and we could get some pretty great content creators out of it.
Yeah.
Do you think though that the content? Do you think there'll be a separation of communities where, like, if you're more hardcore gamers are going to be more Twitch versus like the anybody can do this kind of thing will be on the YouTube? Do you think almost to the point where if you look at like a Steam store where you got some real gems in there, but man, you got some real doozies as well. Do you think we're going to have that with YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I mean, you think that's probably not any different than what it is now.
Well, maybe
98% of YouTube is crap.
Yeah.
So
maybe.
I mean, communities evolve and change and split and reform and do all kinds of things anyway. Life is fluid and business is fluid and communities are fluid, and I think people overreact to change that just happens all the time anyway and is never going to stop. It's just what form does the change take?
Wow.
Yeah. What do you think, Roger? Do you think there's going to be a schism between Twitch and YouTube as someone who avidly streams to Twitch?
I that there's going to be. I do think that there's going to be a switch here. So if we have people that are be able to create content much easier on YouTube, I think that's cool. But I also think that you're going to get a lot of weird... I mean, you already do have this on Twitch too, but you're going to get a lot of weird streams that are going to be just really amateurish. There's a lot of really, really good content creators out there right now, both on Twitch and YouTube. It'll just be interesting to see, like... And I'm not saying I'm professional, because my stuff is pretty amateurish too, but... but I just it'll be interesting to see, like, how these communities change and the ability to be able to jump in on somebody's stream and play along with somebody. I think that's an interesting concept, but I also think it's going to be really weird. I mean, I'm assuming there's got to be some way that you could probably lock that down so you don't just have some guy on there or I say guy generally, but somebody that just comes on there and just starts throwing vulgarities and just ruins your stream. But I mean, we kind of already have a lot of just weird stuff already. Like, I just think about, like, some of the notices that we get from school where, like, watch what your kids are watching on YouTube, because it may seem like a very, like, child-appropriate program that you're watching. All of a sudden, like, that Momo character will pop up and, like, tell somebody to do something terrible to somebody or to themselves. So it'll just be interesting to see what kind of, communities. You know what I mean?
I don't think the fact that Google and Stadia and YouTube are going to all be together is going to change any of that. I mean,
maybe not.
Yeah, you think about blogging when it was new versus how it is now, and literally everybody can have a blog. So you have to work hard to find the good blogs. Yeah. Same with podcasts. But also, you got to remember that people got to start somewhere. And so what is amateurish content now may not be in a year or two.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just... I'm not saying I'm against it. I just think it's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird that, it's one thing for me to stream a Twitch game and then have people like come in my room and talk, and I love that, right? I love having the community like feel like they can talk and stuff like that. But have somebody just jump in on a game and start playing with you, I think that's a weird thing.
Well, yeah, no. From what I understood, all of that is going to be within the streamer's control.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that's
I mean,
good.
they'll still have the ability to the same tools that they have now to control trolls and other people that they just don't want in their stream.
Yeah.
That stuff won't go away.
Okay. Well, yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll have to see what happens. Is this coming out this year? I forget. Did they say this is coming out
Yes,
this year?
2019.
2019.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few more questions I just want to ask before we wrap things up. So, we've talked about this before. Do you think this is going to change the way that like media is being rated? Because right now, digital media is not rated. Do you think? I mean, I almost feel like it has to, right? It almost has to change of how we rate media now.
Probably it'll catch up. I don't know if what that really changes though.
Yeah.
Does that mean anything to anyone here?
No, not really. I don't really care. I mean,
they can rate it or not, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it doesn't. But it's just an interesting thing that, before games that are digital don't have to go have an ESRB rating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I would think that that's going to have to change with with the services.
It'll probably be like how the states, at least here in America, have been slow to adapt to charging sales tax for online purchases.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then gradually they're kind of catching on and making sure that it happens. It'll probably be something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think there's usually like inciting incidents, especially with like parental controls and rating information that happen and cause like an uproar, and then that's when the systems get put in place. Like the ESRB didn't exist until Night Trap did, and then everyone freaked out and lose their minds. So I mean,
now it's on Switch.
Yeah. So maybe Google will like implement their own system. Like this video game has XXX and X. Like it has violence or it has or strong language, and so you can know that. Because I feel like they will probably have to change something instead of just like having people run rampant with Google accounts and access to every video game possible.
Yeah. One thing that you mentioned in our news was the overall cost of gaming, Christian. Do you think this is going to bring down the overall cost of gaming?
Part of me wants to say yes. I want to say yes because that gets rid of the whole hardware distribution end of the market for Google Stadia and their stuff. I mean, it will bring down the cost in the sense that you won't have to buy a box to play the games. So that's an out-of-the-box less cost. But video game publishers and developers are used to getting that $60 fee for their game. That's how they build their budgets, I'm sure, and that's how they conceptualize profits and, present those to the board, and that's how they telegraph their earnings and everything like that. So I feel like they're going to be hard-pressed to get away from that $60 price tag if they sell games individually, whether or not it actually costs them less.
Yeah. What do you think, Blue?
Yeah, I mean, Christian's probably right. And then it's also like, probably, but you'll still see the sales that we see now. The huge digital sales that always happen. And so.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, even if the publishers cling to their $60 full price point, that doesn't necessarily mean we have to pay it.
You're right, yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm hopeful too. I mean, I'm hopeful, with the cost of the console, obviously that's going to be taken away. But I don't know. I mean, I just, you look at digital downloads for any other system and there's full price. It's not any different than a physical copy, right? I can buy Yoshi's Crafted World physically or digitally and it's the same price regardless.
Yeah.
And, you always
and
hear
because it's Nintendo, it ain't going on
Yeah.
sale.
Exactly. And you always
But
hear the
if
argument.
Google owned it, it might.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe.
That's true. But that's the thing. You always hear the argument of, well, the cost of shipping and the cost of, this. And I understand that there's still marketing behind digital games. But the cost of shipping the product and packaging the product is not there anymore. So why isn't it a little bit cheaper? It should be somewhat cheaper. But typically it's not. My last question then. I mean, this is kind of the overall question, Blue, that you asked. Do you think digital services really are going to end gaming as we know it?
Well, like I said earlier, I think that it's kind of silly. People are overreacting, way overreacting. And, we don't know yet. We know what digital gaming looks like now. We don't know what it's going to look like in 5 years or 10 years. And as gamers, we do have power to vote with our dollars and to insist that, we come up with solutions for these problems of losing digital games that we've paid for in the past. And I think that part of the reason that it just happens is that nobody has put up enough of a fuss about it. So
yeah, agreed. What do you think, Christian?
Yeah, I think the same thing. Like what Blue said, I think the people who play video games will spend money on the way that they want to play it. And I think based on the success of the PS4, I mean, people were ringing the death bell for consoles or for PC as we knew it at one point, and then for consoles as we knew it. And still, like, the PS4 succeeded on being a box that was very similar to what people were used to in, like, the PS2 and PS3 days. And the Xbox One failed by trying to be something more than that to an extent. And so I think people will continue to vote with their wallets, and we won't see radical change yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I agree with both of those points. I mean, I think the thing that excites me the most is that anytime you have innovation in the industry, like, that should push the whole industry as a whole, right? So either you're going to adapt and adjust. It's, capitalist Darwinism, right? Mm-hmm. So you either adapt or adjust, or you die. And, I think we've seen that with a lot of the brick and mortar stores. Like you said, Blue, it's not just video games, it's all media, right? Like books and just even retail in general, that they have to learn to adapt and adjust. And if you don't, you're going to die. I'm not trying to sound cruel, because of the people that lost their jobs because of that. That's not fun. But I do think that it does introduce innovation. And in fact, I don't know if you guys heard this, but Walmart has said that they're thinking about getting into the digital gaming industry now too.
Right. So the bottom line there is there's money to be made.
Yes.
And everybody wants a piece of it. And so look at all these companies dance and try to get our attention. This is for us. They're competing for us.
Yes.
So this is a very enviable position for gamers to be in.
Yeah. Well, and for Christian, you probably experienced a little bit about this, but I mean, I think Blue and I can both attest to this, that, gaming has always been kind of a subculture kind of thing, right? Like, a lot of times you'd say, oh, I play video games, and you'd get scoffed at. I mean, I still think older people kind of look at gaming and it's like, ugh, like, again, like, what a waste of time, right? But what a unique time to be in, where it's seen as there's money to be made here,
Yeah, exactly. Like, just like Roger was saying, I remember being in high school and saying, oh, I played this game, and people looking at you like you're crazy. Yeah. Like, it's the most uncool thing you could possibly do.
Yeah.
And now, this is pretty cool. I don't see a whole lot to complain about. And I certainly don't see the end of gaming. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. It's going to change. I think the landscape's going to change for sure, but it's not going to end. And I even think that even for media, for physical media, I think a lot, while stores like GameStop and Best Buy and other stores may be struggling, I think that the retro type stores are booming because of this, because of the fact that there are collectors that still like to do that, like to collect old games. And and there's a market for that. So I think that to say that physical media is going to just die completely, I think that's not true either. And you're still going to have Nintendo, you're still going to have PlayStation, you're still going to have Xbox that are still going to come up with physical media. That's not going to change. Mm-hmm. So I think this is an exciting time for sure. Listeners, what do you think? You can send us an email. You can send us an email at info@gamerheadspodcast.com. You can go on Twitter and send us a tweet at GamerHeadsPC. You can go on our website, gamerheadspodcast.com, and leave us a message there. You can go to facebook.com/GamerHeadsPodcast and leave us a message there as well. All right, before we get out of here, let's go around and tell people how they can get a hold of us. So, Blue, why don't you start? How can people get a hold of you?
You can almost always find me on Twitter. My handle is @WritersView, and it's spelled with a Y, so WRY. And then I also have a website, which is writersview.com.
Nice. And Christian, how can people get a hold of you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Christian Cubza. Otherwise, you can read my written reviews at New Game Network, Push Square, and GamerHeadsPodcast.com.
And as I mentioned before, you can always follow us on Twitter at GamerHeadsPC. You can follow us on Facebook.com/GamerHeadsPodcast. And you can always find new articles, new content, new reviews, and you can also become a member there at GamerHeadsPodcast.com, and you can leave comments and such. All right, Christian, thank you so much for joining us this week.
It was my pleasure.
And Blue, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And listeners, thanks again for giving up almost 2.5 hours of your time to listen to our podcast. We really appreciate it.
We are long-winded, and we apologize.
We are. We talk about games, and we get all excited, and then we keep talking and talking and talking. So, but we appreciate your time, and we would love to hear what you have to say about our podcast and give us ratings. To do so, you can go to iTunes, the link in the show notes to our iTunes account, and you can leave us ratings there. You can let us know what you think about the show. We'll read your reviews on the show. We'd love to hear what you have to say, so please give us feedback. With that, we will have Mike back next week. He is on vacation this week, so we'll have him back next week, and we'll have a brand new episode for you. Until then, stay safe and game on. Bye.
Bye.